Good morning. A video to show you how to handle in-kind donations and in-kind expenditures. It's all part of the same thing. So you have some significant restrictions on how you value volunteers, for example. Um, Generally speaking, most volunteers are not, you can't add them to your income statement as an in-kind donation. You'll have to do a quick Google search on this to find out. But in most cases, for instance, when I was doing volunteer work for the local theater, they could record my hours and put it um, as a footnote, but they could not record the fact that I gave them 15 hours and then put a price to it. That's an example. So I want you to look at that. Goods are different. If a volunteer has a set of specialized skills, then you can record it, and you also have to say the work is necessary, that you were going to pay for it anyway. My suggestion is always, if you have an accountant, for example, to prepare your taxes and do it for free, have them issue you an invoice and then a credit memo canceling the invoice so that you can show that in your documentation. Good way to do it. Uh, One other thing I want to mention is that the goods are what are valued at the value to you, not whatever the donor gives you. So, for example, if I had, like it's happened, I had a car that I donated to a charity and it was in pretty bad shape. Now, they immediately turned around and put it to the junkyard. So, their value was about $100. My value was $2,500 because that was the blue book value and I could prove that. So it doesn't have to be the same value. And for that reason, I suggest you take the goodwill approach. What goodwill does is they give you a receipt and they only have what you donated, not how much it's worth. You get to assign your own values to that. I suggest you do the same thing for your in-kind donors. Not always, of course, if somebody gives you, in my example, a $100 case of paper and you can prove it's $100 and you all agree on the amount, that's fine. But it's much simpler if you simply give them a receipt that says, you gave me a case of copy paper. In preparation, you have a few things. You have to have a revenue account for in-kind donations. I've listed the type and the detail type here when you create it. An other asset account called in-kind donations clearing. It's just a standard clearing account. Type is other asset, detail type is other current assets. Then you have to have an in-kind donation product or service, and that posts to the in-kind donations income account we just created. You're going to have to identify the expense category. My example was a um, case of copy paper that would go under office supplies. So you just have to identify it for the next step. If someone were to, for example, give you a car and you're going to keep the car, then it probably would go into vehicles under fixed assets. And finally, determining the value of the donated good or service. We discussed that a few seconds ago. Now I want to talk about the steps that you go through. So if it's a cash donation, think about what happens with a cash donation. The first thing that happens is you create a receipt that records the receipt of cash to the checking account ledger. It records the donation income and it records the donation against your donor, a donation against that particular donor for your donor record. Let's take a look at that. So what I'm going to do here is go to New, Sales Receipt. I have a test donor called Bob Test. Scroll down here, and I'm going to put this to in-kind, I'm sorry, donations from individuals. Whatever the value is, let's say $100, just making this up. And then I put it to my checking account. And let's say we put it into the Ally Bank checking. Remember, this is simply a uh, um, demo system. So, well, frankly, there's some junk in here. But that's pretty simple as to how that goes. So that's the first step. Now we take a look at purchasing. And let's say that was $100 for a case of copy paper. So now I have to go buy the copy paper. So at this point, I go to New Expenditure, and I have Office Max there. I'm going to pay it out of the Ally checking. My category is going to be Office Supplies and Software. There we go. Once again, $100. We'll talk about billable later. And the class would be whatever the class is, right? Let's say it's for administrative is probably what Office Supplies would be for. So that's what happens if I purchase this. If somebody gives me a cash donation and then I purchase it. But what happens for in-kind donation? Well, it's the same thing, except here in this product and service, remember we said we had to create, trying to make this bigger, sorry, there we go. So this is in-kind donation. Oh, there it was right there. So I select in-kind donations, donations of goods and services. When you change this, by the way, it'll always wipe out the amount, so you have to fix that as well. But instead of using the Ally checking account, you're going to put it to the, and just type in the word kind to search, the in-kind clearing account. And then you simply say save and close. So what this does is it records it in the in-kind clearing account and records the revenue, and it does apply this to the donor record. Then when you turn around, almost immediately, because you've got the goods in your hand. So I would leave the payee blank, goods and services, donated, supplies maybe, whatever you decide to put there. But up here, once again, this has to be in-kind clearing account, and then you save and close. So what this does is it relieves the in-kind clearing account of the $100 that we posted here in the sales receipt. So this put the money in, this takes the money out. That's why we call it a clearing account. We just use it for this kind of activity. And we have it under office expenses, which is where it belongs. Think about that. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.